Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today I have Chris Parsons on the line, and he's founder of Elevated Husbands. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
All right, Chris. So I'm excited to get into today's topic. We'll be talking about how you're helping Christian men really solve their marriage problems, and we'll talk about your journey, and then also some of the things that maybe contribute to marriage problems in the first place. So excited to get your take and your experience on this. But before we get into that, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Chris, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Chris, what mission matters to you?
My mission is to help men experience God's love and goodness in their marriage. I think people have different ways of spreading the gospel and the good news and reaching hearts for reaching different people at different places. And my heart is really for reaching men who are struggling in their marriages.
Yeah, it's a great mission, and excited to have you on the show to talk about this topic. I feel like it's one that we don't address enough, so excited to bring this content to our audience. And maybe just to get us started, tell us a little bit more about your background. Like how did you get on this path or on this journey to helping men in their marriages?
Yeah, I really feel like I've lived about a dozen different lives. So I was an atheist for about 20 years. I actually became an atheist when I was 5 because I found a Christmas present in the closet a few days before Christmas. And then Christmas morning came and it said "From Santa" on it. And so I was, precocious, I guess you would say. And my mind immediately thought, okay, well, you lied about Santa. It doesn't really make sense that he could fly to every house in the world in one night. And how did I ever believe that? And everybody around me is in on this lie, and they're using this to control me. They're telling me there's this, invisible person that can see everything that I do, and that's going to reward me if I'm good or punish me if I'm bad. And that had kind of been my experience of God, and what religion was a tool to control me. And so I felt that if Santa was a lie, then God was a lie, and Christianity. And so I was an atheist through college. And then towards the end of college, there was this beautiful, beautiful sunset. One of those sunsets where it looks like God just painted the sky with all the different colors of purple and orange, and it was incredible. And as I sat there and watched it, I felt awe, and I felt it was impossible for this to all exist and be random. It no longer seemed feasible to me that all of this could have happened just by chance.
Wow, so you felt that in your heart, right? Like this movement.
Yes, and just a beautiful sunset is all it was, and in that moment, I could no longer call myself an atheist. I didn't really know that I was a Christian or anything like that, but I had this deep feeling that a God must exist. And so then after college, I started dating my now wife. And I had a coworker, and they were both Christian. And I used to challenge my coworker daily. I mean, I was the guy that used to spend hours every day arguing on the internet about, why Christianity was dumb. And so I was open to the idea, but I was very much kind of against it, just in terms of not really having experienced anything that showed me that Christianity was true. And which, by the way, I was an internal auditor at the time. I graduated college with a degree in finance. And So I was doing that, and every day I came at my coworker hard. I would come at my wife with questions, well, oh, okay, you're saying the Bible's literal, but then it says, God replaced this guy's heart of stone with flesh. And, is that literal? And just trying, to get them and make them caught.
Yeah.
And what they showed me was that there was something different about them. There was something to their faith that actually made a difference to who they were and how they lived their lives. And the way that they loved me and loved people just generally really opened my mind to the idea that there could be something special and true in Christianity. And so I started reading the Bible. I had never really gone to church. Actually, when I was 13, my mom put me in confirmation class at the Methodist church. And I told my mom, I don't believe and I'm not going to go. And she said, well, too bad, you're going. And so I went through the whole confirmation process. And then at the end, the pastor's wife took me in the little room and she said, do you take Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? And I said, no, because she was speechless. I mean, she had never had anybody say no before.
Wow.
Probably has never had it happen again. And she was very confused. I don't understand. You were one of the best kids in the class. Like you were always engaged. And I said, yeah, but it doesn't make sense. Why did Jesus have to die? Couldn't God just wave his hand and forgive us? And, why this and why that? So I had never really gone to much church, but my experience with church to that point had largely been that religion was just a nice thing that people said they believed in, but it didn't really impact who they were or how they lived their lives. And so I didn't immediately start by going to church. I went into the Bible. I literally read the Bible cover to cover twice, and just wanted to see what it said for myself. And then I started going to church, meeting with pastors, priests, went on retreats and all sorts of stuff, and really found my own journey. Eventually got baptized, and so now I love being able to spread the good word and tell people about what a difference being a Christian can make in your life.
What an amazing story. And thank you for sharing that, because it's something that I feel like a lot of people that watch this can relate to, no matter what end they're at in their journey, by the way, with God. So there's a lot of different things that you mentioned. And I guess one specific that I want to kind of pull out and just talk about a little bit longer is like this idea of kind of like challenging, like you were a challenger. I don't know if that's a specific term, but like challenging everything and kind of and going through it. So your path, I would argue, I mean, it's not necessarily the same one, that everybody's path's different, obviously, but your path's a little bit different, right? Like you're an atheist when you start, and then you're even an opponent to and challenging it, everything, and kind of shooting things down, as you mentioned. Like, what would you say, like, it was like to kind of when you finally had that point in your life, if there was a point, or if it was a longer transition, could have been, but what would you say, like, kind of that felt like when you finally kind of started accepting and you finally started your own process, whether that was reading the Bible or some of the other things you mentioned? Like, what did that feel like?
There was a lot of different stages for me, because I had so much negative beliefs and associations with Christianity. And so it was definitely a process for me. When I first started considering myself a Christian, I believed in God, I believed in Jesus, but I didn't value religion at all. I didn't value church or any of the things that go along with that. And it was my own hurts that were there, and things that you're told. So one of the things that I learned in history class was that Christians had murdered all these people around the world, and been the source of all this violence, and that was something very, very difficult for me, that was stopping me from really embracing all parts of Christianity, and the going to church and all those things. And really, it was definitely a process. I wish it had been a one-time epiphany that just washed me with peace, but it was a couple year journey for me, really. Probably about a 2 year journey to the point where I really felt that I no longer had those hurts and issues holding me back. And then from there, the rest of the journey, which I'm sure we'll get into, but then bad things happen in your life,
Yeah.
and so then you're faced with doubt about how good is God, and so there's definitely been points in my life where I had to really reassess what being a Christian meant to me, and
Mhm.
how that affected my life, and how I was going to move forward in life with that.
And so taking it a step further. So now you've accepted Christ. You're growing stronger in your faith. What did this transition look like for you to then start moving into the space of helping others with their marriage, helping other Christian men with their marriage? Like how did that lead up?
So I originally came into Christianity as bullheaded as I had rejected it.
Yeah.
And so I really got into, the different schisms of whether, it was Protestant versus Catholic, or Calvinist versus whatever, and all these different things, and
You went
arguing
far
with
with it,
people.
right?
Yeah,
You went
arguing
far
with
with it. It
people.
sounds like some people are watching this that are Christian, like, wow, he went far.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I went deep, and really, it was very antagonistic, I guess you would call it. I really
I said
enjoyed.
challenger. That was
Yeah,
my polite word.
right. I was bullheaded, and it was a pride issue, right? I really enjoyed feeling smarter than other people, and so I would challenge them and argue with them and fight over all these different things, and so it's what I found through my journey was that. None of those things. It's about love. That's what it really comes down to, and it's not about me. That was a hard thing for me to accept. We all want to think that it's all about us, but um, what I think, and whether I think this is right or that or right, it's just an opinion, and it doesn't really change anything. And I wasn't loving people, as much as I might have convinced myself otherwise. I
Mhm.
wasn't loving them by trying to argue with them and feel better about myself.
Mm.
And so it really became about loving people. And then my wife and I, actually, our first child, we had been married about 2 years, and my wife got pregnant, and she was 9 months pregnant with her first child, a boy, and we had a stillborn. So she had to give birth almost 9 months pregnant to a dead baby.
Mm.
And that was extremely challenging to my faith. Not not that I doubted God's existence, or whether it was true, but what it meant. If Is this a result of being Christian? Is having bad things happen to you? Is this, does being a Christian not prevent bad things like this from happening to you? What's the point? Why are we believing? And so, I came to see that bad things happen to everybody, and it's not the way that God designed the world. It's a result of the world. The fall of man is when sin came into the world. That's when all the bad things that happen in our lives aren't necessarily caused by our sin, but just the fact that there is sin. And so, believing in God, being a Christian, it doesn't prevent these bad things from happening. But what it does do is it gives you the grace and it gives you the power to move forward in gratitude and just being thankful for all the good things. We now have 4 healthy kids. My oldest son just turned 9, and my youngest son, I've got 2 daughters in the middle, but my youngest son will turn 2 next month. So
it's amazing. I saw the pictures on your site, by the way. Beautiful family. Amazing.
Thank you so much. So, incredible blessings. And so that happened after we'd been married a couple years. Mm-hmm. And that was, suffered with depression and really just struggled to move forward without being dragged down by the weight of that. And a few years later, that's when my wife and I started having real issues in our marriage. We had started off with some issues, right? Like every couple does. And over the years, things just built and built and built. Mm-hmm. And it was around the 7-year mark. I remember because people would say that the 2 most common years to get divorced were the 1st year and the 7th year. Mm. And so it was around the 7-year mark. Things were really starting to get bad, where there was a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing. We felt more like roommates. There was no love. We didn't really, as much as we cared about each other, we weren't really caring for each other. A lot of bitterness and resentfulness. And so that set me on this journey to solve that problem. Mm-hmm. And within the course of a year, I was able to completely turn around my marriage, where everything was so much better. I felt respected. We both were getting our needs met. Mm-hmm. Just truly having harmony and joy in our home. Mm-hmm. And so after that experience, I started helping guys, just, family, friends, guys from Bible study, just, telling them, hey, I had a problem like that. Here's what I did. Mm. And a year ago, I had grown a cleaning business, built it up. It was doing really well, and I was barely working. I only had to work, 4 or 5 hours a week, mm-hmm. and I was bored. And I really started thinking about, is this all there is? I want more out of life, and what do I really want to do? I didn't particularly care about cleaning. It was just a means to an end. And so a lot of prayer, and what I realized was that this was something that I had in me to be able to help men on this journey, mm-hmm. and that it was a gift and that I should be sharing it. So that's what I'm doing now.
Oh, what an amazing story. And when you decided to, because obviously you've had many blessings, and when you decided to then be a blessing and then to start helping others, and even just in the early days, let's say, of just helping people before there was a formal program and before there was infrastructure, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but in the early days, like what started happening? And like when you start teaching other people and when you start helping other people, like what started happening for you?
Actually, when I first started helping people, it did not go that great, because I was giving surface level advice. Mm. And so, I remember I had a friend, and he was struggling, and his wife was very upset with him, and So I told him word for word all the things to say. I literally like wrote the text messages for him to send to her. And so things turned around. She was much happier, and it only lasted a few days because she quickly realized that those messages, she didn't know that they came from me, but she quickly realized that they weren't congruent with what he actually was being and doing and believing. Um, and so, I quickly realized that it's actually a process of transformation that has to happen in the men, and it's not just as simple as knowing the words to say. Knowing the words to say really helps, but you've got to have the heart behind it so that it's sincere to you and not just me speaking through you.
So I know that obviously every marriage is going to be complex. There's going to be their own opportunity areas, their own challenges, of course. Every dynamic is going to be different. But what are some of the common things or themes that tend to cause marriage problems?
I think the top two are number one, being roommates, and number two, arguing or fighting a lot. And sometimes you've got both, where you cycle between both of them. So being roommates would be what a lot of women will say is, "I love you, but I'm not in love with you." That's a kind of what I would call a roommate situation. You're doing life together. You're taking care of the home, taking care of the kids, paying bills. You're doing all these things, but there's no passion. There's little to no intimacy. There's just no true, what we thought we were signing up for when we got married, right? We wouldn't agree to spend our lives and commit financially and raise kids and everything with just a roommate. And
Yeah.
so all those things that make a marriage are missing.
Hmm.
And the second one being arguing, and that can look different. Some people, they're yell and throw things, but other people, maybe they suppress it, and then there's a blow up fight, and things are quickly, the fire is put out, but it stays burning, and it's just really about past hurts and bitterness and frustration that is constantly there between the husband and wife. And so a lot of times the arguments aren't even really about whatever thing they're arguing about. It's not really about how you do the dishes. There's other real problems underneath that.
So, Chris, I want to transition a bit here. So, we'll continue the discussion, but before, let's get into Elevated Husbands. So, tell us a little bit more about the organization.
Yeah, so I founded Elevated Husbands a year ago, and it's a program. We have the Happy, Healthy Marriage Reset program. And what we do is walk men through the process of the changes that they need to make in order to create a happy, healthy marriage. And one of the top questions that I always get is, why do you work with men instead of couples? Do you have that question?
Oh, I can see it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and the reason is twofold. Number one, it's because I know what the journey looks like for men, because that's the journey that I went through. And so it's really, men have the power to make these changes on their own. Now, there's two people in a relationship, and so you do need your wife to play ball, right? For lack of a better word, but you have the power to increase her desire to play ball and be a part of the solution. Because there's a lot of guys that I work with that, their wife is kind of resigned to accepting how things are, or resigned to thinking that they can't change and they're done trying and they want a divorce. And so, as long as there's an open line of communication, I can't help guys that, they don't talk to their wives, they're separated, their wife doesn't want to talk to them. There's really not much opportunity there. But as long as there's an open line of communication, then there's an opportunity for the man to change the direction of where things are going. And a lot of guys don't necessarily realize the path that they're on. The guys that I talk to who are already separated, they know what the next step is. But there's a lot of guys who their wife is telling them, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And she's mentioning divorce when they get in arguments. And they're not really realizing that the next step for them, if they don't change something, is separation and eventually divorce. Because people can only stay unhappy for so long before they want to make a change. A lot of times I talk to guys and they'll say that their wife is having a midlife crisis. And when I look at that, I say, well, wouldn't you be? I mean, you've done all the things that you thought you were supposed to do, but you're unhappy, you're unfulfilled in your life, and you don't know what's wrong. All you can do is change everything. And so I think, that is something that men have the power to influence. We can't control other people. We can't make our wives love us or, change or do anything different, but we do have the power to create a desire in her for things to be better. And so that is how I help men is by showing them that path.
So tell me a little bit more about the program, like how it works, like length of time, like format, how it's delivered. Give me a little bit more there.
Yeah, so it's the Happy Healthy Marriage Reset program. It's a 12-week program, and it's about 8 hours of content. And the content, I'll kind of run down a few things. We're getting rooted in our faith, which means really understanding what God wants for us in our marriage and in our lives. And one of the big things that I believe is that heaven and hell are not restricted to the afterlife. We have the power to create heaven on earth, and we have the power to create hell on earth. And a lot of us, when we're in unhappy marriages, we're in hell on earth. And so really understanding what has gotten us there in order to then escape that hell and create heaven on earth. Bringing your best self to the marriage. And that's a big thing that is about the personal transformation that has to happen before the marriage can be transformed. Then about, I kind of consider there to be a big 3 things that a happy, healthy marriage needs. One is passion. And when I say passion, I'm talking about the physical and spiritual intimacy of loving each other, caring about each other, feeling valued. 2 is both getting our needs met. Infidelity tends to happen. In my experience, I haven't been cheated on, but in my experience with my clients, infidelity is a result of not getting our needs met. And so when you understand what your wife's needs are and how to meet them, then you're empowered to feel confident that won't happen again or won't happen at all. And number 3, shared values. When I say shared values, you and your wife don't have to have the same values, but you have to have an appreciation for each other's values. And that really is what makes us feel valued and heard, is when somebody knows us to our very deepest level and they care about the things that we care about.
Mm.
Then there's other parts, setting boundaries, all sorts of things. Tearing down walls is a big one. A lot of the guys I deal with, their wives, there's been so much broken trust, so many past hurts. Their wives have put up walls to protect themselves. And so, a lot of guys will realize that they have made mistakes and they're trying to change, but they're not getting anywhere because you can't just change and then they'll lower those walls. You actually there's a process you have to go through in order to tear those walls down in order to be able to show your wife that you've changed.
So, Chris,
And
I know that we're just kind of scratching the surface on this, but I want to go a
yes,
little bit further and kind of what this content looks like. So when somebody's
yeah,
going through, obviously you said over 8 hours of content there, are they also working with you one-on-one? Are they working with your team? Is there another component there? Like, give me a feel for that.
yeah. So the content is all around building your awareness and understanding of how things work.
Mhm.
And then there's weekly coaching calls where we problem solve and
Oh, that's
troubleshoot
awesome. So then
the
they also
issue.
get a call as well, yes?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's so important. The
Yeah.
understanding is very helpful, but then you need to be able to apply it to your specific situation, and that's
Mhm.
where the calls come in. Or, hey, I thought this was what I was supposed to do. I tried this and it didn't work. Here's what happened. Okay, try this instead, right? So we're really actually making sure that you're making progress and
Mhm.
getting results to create that happy, healthy marriage.
That's awesome. And so what's the feedback that you've gotten from some of your clients that have gone through this and worked through this with you?
A lot of, I would say the biggest thing is going from hopelessness to
Mm,
hopefulness because
okay.
a lot of the guys aren't really sure that there's much hope
Mm,
of things changing. And there's a vague sense of hope that things
mhm,
could be different, but they're so frustrated because they've prayed for so long for God to change things and he hasn't changed them.
mm,
And what I think of it as, I think of it as a metaphor, like putting your hand on a hot stove, and your
mhm,
hand is burning, and you're in pain, and you're praying for God to take away the pain, but you're not moving your hand.
mm,
And so, in my experience, that's not the way that prayer works. And we've got a whole section about the power of praying, and one of the biggest things is if you are the cause, then God isn't going to change the effect.
mm,
And so it's up to you to take your hand off that burning stove
mm,
in order to deal with that pain and not just to pray for God to change it. A lot of guys are stuck in that, praying. And when I say pray, they're really just wishing that God's going to change the results that they're seeing in their marriage, but they're not making any changes to
mm,
make that happen. And so going through the program is really the way to take your hand off that stove. It's
mm.
the way to create that joy and peace in your home to be the hero that your wife needs you to be.
Wow. What an amazing story and program. And I love the interactive part, and that people actually do get the opportunity to work through what they're doing, and they have the content for the self-paced part of it as well. I know we just barely kind of scratch the surface on the content side of things, and I do want people to follow up and to learn more. And we'll put all in the show notes. We'll put all the websites and all that good stuff. But just want to say, like, so what's next for you? I mean, just what's next for you? What's next for the program? What's next?
Yeah, well, we're going to be reaching more men. We're going to
Mm,
be hopefully doing more around parenting. Currently, we have one bonus training around parenting,
mm,
but I think that there's absolutely more that we can do to help men and dads be the not just the husband, but also the father that God has called them to be.
yeah. It's awesome. And if somebody is watching this and they want to learn more about Elevated Husbands and they want to connect with you and your team, I mean, what's the best way for them to do that?
So you can go to our website, www.elevatedhusbands.com. And on there, you can sign up for our emails. You can actually book a call with me if you're struggling with some of the problems that we talked about here today. And we'll hop on a call and I'll help you get clear on what's going on, what's working, what's not working in your marriage. You could also join our free Facebook group, which is Happy, Healthy Marriage for Christian Husbands.
Fantastic. And we'll put all that stuff, as I mentioned before, in the show notes so people can just click on it and head right on over to your website and to connect. And speaking to the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters, we're a platform that's all about bringing on entrepreneurs, executives, and experts and having them share like why they do what they do, like what gets them motivated to go out there in the marketplace and in the world overall and to make a difference. If that's the kind of content that you're into, we definitely welcome you to hit that subscribe button because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Chris, really, it has been a pleasure getting to know more about your story, your walk with the Lord, also all of the great work that you're doing through Elevated Husbands to really fulfill your calling and helping others with their marriage and their marriage problems and just serving as a beacon of hope out there and starting that dialogue, as you mentioned, which is just so crucial. So again, thank you for being on the show. It's really been a pleasure.
Thanks, Adam.